Parshas Vayetzei. This week's Parsha, we have the famous episode of Jacob's ladder. The Torah begins, or at least the Parsha begins, this is Chavches Yud, that's chapter 28, verse 10. Vayetzei Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Haran. Yaakov left Beersheva and he went to Haran. And he came to the place, by tradition, Rashi says that's Har HaMoriah, and he takes stones and he puts them around his head, and he dreams. And he dreams of a ladder. Sulam, this is Pasuk Beis, verse 12. Sulam mutzav artza v'rosho magia shemaima, a ladder that's firmly fixed on the ground, but its head is all the way up to the top, and angels are going up and down. And Hashem is standing there and says, I am the Lord of your father Abraham, and the Lord of Yitzchak, and the land on which you are resting is I will give to you and to your children. This is Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak never leaves what we call now Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Now we're going to focus on Pasuk Yudalad, verse 14. We got to figure this one out. And your descendants, your seed, will be like the dust of the earth, or the earth of the land. Afar ha'aretz. Ufaratz ta yama, and you will spread out towards the sea, which is west, Kedma, east, Safona, north, Negba, south. V'nivrachu v'cha, kol mishchos ha'adama u'v'zarecha. And in you and in your descendants will be blessed all of the families of the world, or the earth. So, just parsing this out before we get to what all the pieces mean. It says, V'hayozarcha ka'afar ha'aretz. Your seed will be like the dust of the earth. What does that mean? Well, it could mean that they will be plentiful. Onkelos reads it that way. One could challenge that by contrasting it with previous assurances by God to our forefathers of plenitude, of being fruitful. We have for Yitzchak, going in reverse order, Parshas Toldos, V'hirbesi es zarachah k'chochvei hashamayim. I will make your descendants plentiful, like the stars of the heavens. So it doesn't say that here. It doesn't say explicitly. It says it there. Now we have Hashem in Parshas Vayera talking to Avraham and saying, Kivorecha b'rachacha, I will bless you. This is 22:17. I will bless you. V'harba arbe ezaracha k'chochvei hashamayim. I will increase. I will make plenty your descendants like the stars of the heavens, v'chachol asher asfas hayam, and like the sand that's on the shore. So we see that when the Torah wants to refer to multiplicity, a large number of descendants, it says so. In the Bris Ben Absarim, this is the covenant of the pieces. This is Perak Tesvav, Pasuk, hey, that's 15. Again, Bereshis 15:5. And God took him outside. Look up to the sky, heavenward. Usvar kochavim, and count the stars. If you can count them. And he said to him, so will be your descendants. So here, in what way? We asked the question, in what way will Yaakov's descendants be like Afar Ha'aretz? Onkelos says they'll be plentiful. There are others who say that as well. Medrash exploits this lack of specificity about exactly how it is, and it supplies many characteristics of earth, of dust, and says that we share them. For example, that the Medrash says dust only does something, earth only does something when it's combined with water, and water is a metaphor for the Torah. So in other words, we will be like Afar Ha'aretz. We will be, in a sense, Afar Ha'aretz, this dust is inchoate until it's combined with water, and then you can mold it into something. Similarly, the Jews can be molded into something only with water. Fine. The Medrash also says dust or earth will wear down metal, and although you think metal is stronger, at the end of the day, the dust lasts. The metal does not. Another observation of the Medrash: people trample on dust. And when it comes to the Jews, this trampling, the Medrash observes, and so does the Ralbag and others, that it makes the Jews stronger. In other words, the Jews are a popular enemy, and people trample on the Jews, but that produces resilience. The Lekach Tov says that just like Afar Ha'aretz is everywhere, so the Jews spread out, and they're everywhere, and that's consistent with Ufaratz Ta and you will spread out Yama V'Kema Tzafon V'Negba. And Lekach Tov also says that the Jews will last forever. They will never, despite being trampled on, they will never be exterminated. Now, what about this blessing? The Rabbeinu Avraham ben HaRambam goes back to Egypt, and he says, perhaps like Paro and Mitzrayim were blessed by Yosef's presence and his advice. He also says that after Jews dies, they get praised. The Ralbag says, trying to justify what the verse means. I mean, do we hear people say you should be like the Jews? So he says a few people, Katsas will say to Katsas, a few people will say to a few other people, be like Yaakov and his descendants. The Kli Yakar says that, again, everyone steps on the Jews, but the Jews, as a result of this, do more. The Hachayim talks about a benefit to society, talks about how the Jews brought water to Aram, brought food to Egypt. The Netziv says our very existence is a wonder, and that wonder is a cause to provoke thought about the existence of God as the God of history. We also have the notion that we bring an awareness of Hashem as the one true God. One might say, in light of the accomplishments of the Jews in the post-Enlightenment period, 18th century, 19th century, 21st, about the profound advancements in humankind that are attributable to the Jews. It's well-worn stuff for those who are pleased by this statistic, that although the Jews only make up 0.2% of the world's population, they comprise 22% of all Nobel Prize awardees. Why is that? I'm not here to throw my shoulder out patting ourselves on the back. That's not my point here. But my point here is that the Jews are the chosen people, but they're chosen to serve humanity. We are to be the representative of God and the representative of good, despite what you may be hearing from some corners of the globe. You have, among influential Jews, you have Einstein, theory of relativity, Niels Bohr, quantum mechanics, Richard Feynman. I did some research before this. It's just overwhelming. Richard Feynman, quantum electrodynamics, particle physics, superfluidity, superconductivity. Barbara McClintock pioneered in genetics and cytogenetics. Jonas Salk, as we all know, and benefit from the Salk. Polio vaccine, Rosalind Franklin in molecular biology, Zev Landau in theoretical physics, Michelson studying the speed of light, Claude Kohn, Tanuji, atomic physics, Isidore Rabbi, NMR. If anybody gets an MRI, it's as a result of his contributions. Then we have, this is just a list, and I don't want to bore anybody, but the impact of this small, tiny minority of a minority, not even a rounding error to the number of Christians, the number of Muslims, number of Russians, just anything. We're infinitesimal, and the impact is significant. It's not a conspiracy. It's a blessing from God, and it's a blessing to humanity. Stainless steel. These are things that were invented in whole or in part by Jews. Stainless steel, defibrillators, Google, ballpoint pens, drip irrigation, the teddy bear. We mentioned the polio vaccine. Monotheism. Local anesthetics, Novocaine. I learned a lot in this research. The fact that diabetes is influenced by malfunction of the pancreas. The discovery of blood types, blood plasma, immunology, antibiotics, chemotherapy, penicillin, streptomycin, cortisone, aspirin, oral contraceptives, radiation oncology, treatments for breast cancer, the Heimlich maneuver, and also video games, Marvel superheroes, Stan Lee. The impact of the Jew is disproportionate and a blessing to the world. It's impossible to imagine, very difficult to imagine a world without all of the advancements that were brought about as a result. We haven't scratched the surface, or maybe we've just scratched the surface. We haven't talked about literature, and we haven't talked about music. We haven't talked about other art and culture. The impact of the Jew is enormously disproportionate to its numbers, and this is a blessing to humanity. It's hard to see it any other way, for me at least. At least in this verse, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, spread out all over the place. Everybody's going to pick on the Jews. Nevertheless, spread out to all four directions of the earth, and all of the families of man will be blessed by you. My father Zichrono Livracha, had polio. And then none of his children got polio, because between the time that my father got polio and his children could have been susceptible, Jonas Salk developed the polio vaccine, Salk and Sabin, 2 Jews. I'm not arguing that Jews are the super race. I'm not making that argument. I'm making the argument that I believe this verse in the Torah is a description of the mission of the Jew. The mission of the Jew is to make the world a better place, both spiritually and physically. We have to keep on going. We have to keep on trying. We have to bring everybody along with us, because our calling is to do good for the world. Have a good Shabbos.